to go?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
No mic light.
No, I think
It's
it's,
got
Okay,
Zoom.
very well, thank you.
Amy, do you want to sit up here?
I'll do
please?
whatever you want, Tammy.
Big house.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marla.
Actually, at the other end of the table.
That was closer to the door than one we choose.
Gary,
We have Amy Bowles,
good morning.
Superintendent of Schools, here to present. Kind of give us an update.
I have all kinds of stuff for you.
Excellent.
I know how much you love me.
Here.
So last year, the first time I came to city council, it seems like the process we used last year between the school department and city council worked pretty well. So what I've done for today, since this is my first time coming, is I've kind of replicated that process for you. So first and foremost, just to kind of recap some things that are going on in the school department to kind of orient you to how we've been spending our time. So the first handout says 2023, 2024 school year work. What I've done is kind of outline for you so the council has an update on the different initiatives that we've been focused on this year. So people know, in addition to payroll, where is the money going this current year for our FY24 budget. So first and foremost, we did some dramatic changes to the schedule of the middle school and high school this year. One of the biggest complaints we get from the community is that we don't offer enough voice and choice in electives for students. That we offer a ton of EPA electives and PE, but we don't really have a lot of other types of options for students. So this year, the high school moved to an 8-period schedule, which allowed for more opportunity to take courses that students choose. And at the middle school, we actually adopted a schedule that mirrors the high school schedule. So rather than students staying with one teacher for the majority of the day, they're moving amongst periods. And they had a little bit of choice for electives. And one of the nice things about the electives is we partner with community organizations. So for example, we have a group of students who have swum and Y first semester and we're done weightlifting. We've had students go to the Grand, and so we've had some opportunities to offer electives with community partners that don't require us hiring more staff. So that's been really successful, and on both sides, people have really liked that. The other big change is we went back to traditional grading. So we are still doing standards-based instruction and standards-based assessment, but the grading is 0 to 100 rather than 1 to 4 again. So we've just sent out a survey to staff and students are going to be taking it today. And then it's going to go out to families asking for input on how do people think the schedule has gone at both schools? How do people feel like the new grading system is going so that we can have some data to inform any changes we make for the fall of next year. We've created the EEEA. One of the biggest things that I found last year being on the job for the first year was that teacher leaders and teachers' voice was not as strong as it probably should have been. So Nikki Chan and I have created the EEA, which we're very proud of. It used to be called the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Team. And so we wanted to rebrand it because it kind of made people a little nervous based on past. But this group has really taken the lead. There's over 30 representatives from across the district from all the schools, including ed techs, including librarian, multilingual teacher, so that we really have some input from staff on the focused work that needs to happen around curriculum instruction and assessment, so that they don't feel like it's top down and that they feel like it's a collaborative process. So we're really proud of that. The biggest curriculum piece that we are focusing on this year is literacy. When we talk to that group and we talk to teachers informally, the biggest thing that teachers said was lacking was we needed to make a change in the area of reading and writing. So we've worked since last summer on evaluating standards, and I've provided a hyperlink to you that I can email you if you wish, so that you can look at the work. It's pretty impressive. So now, no matter what classroom you're in first grade or what teacher you have, all the teachers are teaching to the same standards. And now we're layering in a selection of curriculum and materials as well. When I talk about the development of the FY25 budget, one of the biggest things that we're working towards in this budget is equity. So that you are not at the mercy of the classroom lottery, I'll call it, so that no matter what teacher you have, the instructional resources and standards that you're being taught are the same. The craft of teaching and how you teach those things is the art of teaching. And that will be dependent upon the teacher you have. But at least the standards and resources will be equitable across grade levels. This year is a big negotiations year. We're negotiating with custodians, bus drivers, educational technicians, and administrative assistants. That's 3 contracts that I'm currently working on with the board to negotiate. So that certainly has budget implications. I handed you the data from adult education to date. That's on this single sheet. That shows you we have a really robust adult education program that I think we all should be proud of in our community. Considering the small budget they have, the things that they do is really amazing. And the parts and pieces they touch for our adult learners, they're really widespread. Annie does a really good job really focusing in not just on high school completion, but also workforce training. So I think that's something that we should be really proud of. I'm also really proud of the increased collaboration with the city that's taken place since last year. Glenn has really worked hard to make sure that whenever there should be conversations between the city and the school department, that I moved in, and that's been dramatically improved, I would say. Department heads, Matt, Jana, whenever there's anything that may have an educational implication, I'm getting a call to attend a meeting. And that's been fantastic. It's also allowed us to talk about what are some budget efficiencies that we can create possibly within our budgets. And I do want to say that when we had the tragedy with our roof at the middle school, if Glenn had not mobilized the fire and police departments the way that he did that night, we would have lost and had a lot more damage than we did. So much appreciation. I haven't said it to the council yet, but what the fire department and the police department did that night, and Glenn the next day helping us was huge, and really saved a lot of loss, in my opinion. In addition, he thought to call me for the FEMA meeting. And so even though we have really good insurance and things were covered, we have that extra layer with the FEMA report that will allow us, if there are certain things that aren't covered through insurance, FEMA can step in and help. So I think that increased collaboration with department heads and with the city manager has drastically improved across last year, which is, I think, really positive.
To your credit, I think you opened that door. Previous administration was very, had the walls up. And when you came along, you opened that door and started that process. And then everybody else joined your thought process and started that process.
Yeah,
So
it's
it
been-
all began with you.
Thank you.
So that
I
I
appreciate
don't
it.
think, in my little short, that didn't exist until you came forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The strategic planning committee, which Tammy is on, is going really well. So I think it's really cool that the city is going through their comprehensive planning, and at the same time, the school department is going through their strategic planning process. Today, I go to my first staff meeting where I will engage staff in a strategic planning activity. And I'm kind of over the next 6 weeks going on the road and meeting with all different pockets of staff. And then once that is done, we'll move to community forums to get input. And certainly we'll be engaging the council as a whole in that process as well. So I think that's really important as we move forward with budgets, that we have that strategic plan as a call to action to help us make our decisions around budgeting. The Early Learning Collaborative has continued. You may recall that last spring, I hired Heather Martin as a consultant from AEYC. She's been meeting with a group of us every month and consulting with us around what can Ellsworth do to help solve the early learning problem that we have, both in access to daycare and pre-K, but also the workforce. So it's kind of a two-pronged group. We have school board that's on that committee, school staff. Casey has been our liaison from the council. And then I've been really excited. The WISE regularly attended, Down East Community Partners has regularly attended. We have a couple of private daycares that have been attending, so that we really have a broad scope of discussion around this, which will lead to budget decisions for us for the FY25 year. We've worked really hard on looking at our intervention team in the Ellsworth School Department and redefining how our interventionists work with students for our struggling learners. A big piece of news that we're really excited about is we did receive one of the awards for the school revolving renovation fund. So one of the things that we obviously have been working really hard to do is how can we fund some of our projects outside of the burden on taxpayers. And so for those of you that don't know, school revolving renovation funds come up every few years. We were one of only a few who got awarded one of these funds. There were over 40 schools that got nothing. So this is for $1.8 million. And what this is 936,000 of it is basically a loan that's forgiven. So we do nothing with the $936,000. The $907,000 is a 10-year 0% interest loan that the school department takes on. And the $1.8 million is to redo the elevator and put in fire suppression at HCTC. So that is a huge step forward for that school. And one of the biggest things the HCTC construction committee has been working on, which Michelle Beal sits on, is even if we eventually build the new HCTC, we own that building at Hancock County Technical Center, and it most definitely can be used for something, and or it can be an asset. And so bringing it up to code and adding fire suppression certainly is a layer of safety for our staff and students in the meantime, but it also helps us move the building forward long term. So we were thrilled to be awarded that. That loan is through Maine Municipal Bond Bank. And so we are working with the attorneys right now, and that will have to take a vote of the council. So we will be coming to you after school board votes. We'll be coming to the council for us to accept that. So that is something that we're really proud of. That was a huge undertaking, and we were really excited that we were awarded that. Also talking about other funding possibilities that are upcoming, so that you're aware. One of the things that we're trying to do is get people to understand that even though our local budget funds a lot, we rely on a lot of grant funding to help supplement. So the Capital School construction funding application has come out. That only comes out every 5 to 10-ish years. And this is the application cycle for construction of a new school. So this will be due at the end of August, and the HCTC Construction Committee will be actively pursuing this funding. We've already had a meeting. If you recall, City Council employed Oak Point and did a feasibility study of our school a couple of years ago. And because it's within the window, we are able to use that entire study as evidence in our project application. So that's really good. And means we won't have to expend money to do that again. So that was really fortuitous that we were able to get that in. And so the main architect and person who did the study, the engineering company from Oak Point, is already Zoomed with us, and we're already starting to put that application together. It'll end up being several hundred pages. It's a huge undertaking, but we believe that's what's best. It's to try to get back on that list again to get us into school. Other grant opportunities that have come up. So like other places, the state is trying to spend ESSER money. And so what's happening is in education, ESSER money runs out September 30th. So the state is just dropping grant applications left and right now on school departments. What's really hard about these is it's great to get the money, but the applications themselves take close to 100 hours, they're saying, if you're doing it the right way. But I am proud of my people. They've worked really hard to get these in place. So the first grant that we did submit is the Maine Outdoor Learning Initiative grant. We've applied for about $98,000 to create a STEM summer academy for middle school students. We've collaborated with Acadia National Park, Woodlawn, Maine Outdoor School, and energy management consultants to try to put a program together. We won't find out about that until late February, probably, if we received that or not. We feel pretty good about the grant because of the partnerships we formed, that we may be successful with that, but that would be a wonderful opportunity for the area. There is also a literacy grant that has been dropped. That grant, we were given an allocation. So some grants, you're given an amount based on your data, and other grants, you can apply for what you want, basically up to a certain threshold. This particular grant, our allotment was $57,000. What's nice about this is it's exactly in line with the work we've been doing in curriculum and instruction. So we'll be able to use this money to help provide all the professional development for the curriculum changes for our staff, which is really important. There's also a grant due March 29th called the ARP Summer Learning and Enrichment. There is more summer school money drop in left and right because of course it lines up with the money expiring by the feds at the end of September. What's really hard about all these summer grants is staff don't necessarily want to work in the summer because they're fried. So that's going to be what school districts are talking about, is that's going to be one of the biggest challenges, is you can have all these wonderful programs, but you don't have the staff to run it. So we're talking about letter C and D. Those two grants are huge undertakings, and we did apply for the outdoor learning grant. So we're trying to figure out which one gives us the best bang for our buck, so we're not overextending ourselves anyway. Finally, something that has huge implications that I think the city should be on top of and aware of is, if you have not followed the governor's plan and Commissioner Macon's plan for public schools to take over the case management of 3- and 4-year-old special education students. That has huge implications for public schools. We are currently the only state in the nation that does not case manage 3- and 4-year-olds. And when you look at the data nationally, Maine is almost dead last for data around 3- and 4-year-olds. And so pretty much the feds have come in and told the state, you need to fix things because it's not okay. Everyone knows in education, early interventions are what's most important. So what this call to action calls for is public schools to take over case management of 3- and 4-year-olds. It does not mean they have to be in the public schools, because of course right now 3-year-olds aren't even funded through the education funding system. But it does require special education to case manage those students and their services. Right now, they're calling for 1/3 of school systems to take that on in the fall, 1/3 the following year, and then the last 1/3 the year after. I think superintendents have pushed back enough. The law hasn't even been passed yet. Rulemaking hasn't occurred. You can't ask people to take that on July 1 this late in the game. That has too many implications, both for planning and budgeting. So I think there may be some breathing room regardless. I did not put Ellsworth in the first 1/3. I wanted to see how it unfolded, really, truly, on the funding side for a year before we took that on. So I would estimate that that will come in FY 26 or 27 for our school budget. But that will certainly have implications. Last but not least, you have a packet of data that I wanted to provide to you. Last year, the Finance Committee and the Council thought this data was very important as you looked at the budget. So what you will see, and I won't go through every single slide, but you'll see our enrollment over the last several years. You will see the change by grades. So you can look at cohorts over time and how they evolve and change. Then you'll see a breakdown by school and grade level so that you have that information. You'll see the high school. And then I also gave you Hancock County Technical Center enrollment, as well as a breakdown of their enrollment by program, so that you see the changes in programming over the last several years and how that's evolved and changed. Then I would like to orient you to the slide that's called multi-language learners. So I think the biggest thing that the council and the community should be aware of is the changing landscape of schools. Ellsworth is not any different than other school systems, but it does change the work of the people in our schools. So first, the increase in multi-language learners. We saw an uptick last year. We've seen a dramatic jump this year. So of course, those students require, and their families require, a different level of instruction and service. It has certainly enriched the diversity of our school, which people have loved, but it does present challenges in curriculum instruction and assessment as these numbers continue to increase. The other huge jump that you will see is in our economic disadvantaged group and students who qualify under McKinney-Vento. We had a massive jump in economically disadvantaged this year. Part of that is because of the hard work of staff. So if you recall last year, I talked about now that breakfast and lunch are provided for all students, there's no more free and reduced lunch forms. And now you have what's called an economically disadvantaged form that you can't force families to fill out upon registration, but you can ask them to fill it out. And so that allows you to be qualified under the category of economically disadvantaged. The higher percentage of your economically disadvantaged students, the more funding you receive through subsidy and the more access to grant money you get. Staff worked really hard to call families and individually partner with them to try to identify if we felt like they were economically disadvantaged. That's a huge uptick from 364 to 432. Like, that's massive. And then 25 to 32 homeless students is also dramatic on that side. So you will see funding changes over time with those dramatic increases. And again, the higher your economically disadvantaged population and homeless population, the more challenging things are. Next, special education student counts. Those numbers, I mean, that 28 to 34% threshold for special ed, we are definitely at. Again, providing more challenges for schools. We are not over-identifying students, which I think some people thought maybe a year ago. When we look at statewide trends, we are right where other school systems are. Behavior is a massive issue statewide and nationally right now with students, causing a lot of different issues. On the next page, I thought you would find it interesting to see the different listings of how a student is identified. So this is the number of students who have each of these identifications to receive, so that you can see the varied types of challenges that we have with staff. Then on the next page, you will see our absenteeism rates that we get ranked on with the state at EEMS in the pink, EHS in the yellow, and then our district data in the green. And then on the last page, you will see our dropout rates. And so even though students go to adult education, they are still considered, unfortunately, dropouts, which drives everyone crazy. To us, if you go to adult education and you're educated and receive a diploma, we don't believe that should count against you, but it does. So you can see our rates on that last page. For the FY25 budget, and I do have actually.
Do you wanna-
handouts if any of
yeah.
you want them.
Here, do you want to look at those and rate? Oh,
This one.
Wait, do you know how to read those?
Yeah, right. So you should have two sheets, one that says budget version 1 and one that says Ellsworth School Department grant awards. Let's look at the grant page first. So on top of the revolving renovation fund, this is a list of the grant funding that we have received for the FY24 year. Okay, so ESEA is the federal grants that are our title grants that we receive each year. Staffing are funded under the Title I grants, which is part of your intervention team. Professional development is in here, technology and supplies. Special education also receives what's called the local entitlement grant each year, and you see that amount. Career and technical education has a variety of grants that it receives to supplement the CTE budget. So those are listed for you. Adult education. And then these are other grants that we receive. So BAR is the Barriers Against Reducing Risk grant that our K-8 school is working on this year. That has been extended into next year as well, which is exciting because that's been really good work that looks at-risk students. Teach with Tech is grant funding that we received to bring both 4D printers and 3D printers into our school to help expand our STEM. Our educator workforce shortage grant just came out last week and we were awarded $51,000, and that will reimburse us for courses that teachers have taken if they're emergency or conditionally certified. That helps bring them up to fully certified. And then because of our increase in homeless population, we received an extra $12,000. And then at Ellsworth High School this year, we received about $6,700 from the Melmac Foundation, which helps increase college and career readiness access for students. So to get to the nitty gritty of the FY25 budget, what I want to outline for you today is the goals of the FY25 budget, and then some of the challenges we're facing. So as I talked about, one of the biggest things I identified last year in doing the budget for the first time was the lack of equity. So in the past, we have some teachers who would put in minimal amounts of supplies, and we had others who put in a ton. So I did some statewide research to look at how other superintendents handle that, how are other budgets formed. And we came up with a flat amount that every teacher is getting to start the budget process. It's a little bit lower than state average, but we feel like it's fair and reasonable. So that classroom supplies that teachers want is already built into the budget. In the past, teachers have had to spend time around the holidays building shopping carts, is the way the budget was done in the past. And really in December, teachers have no idea what they're going to need in September. They don't even know how many kids are going to have. So this helped stabilize that. The other big project that the assistant superintendent and our new IT director took on was they did a complete inventory, K through 12, of all the curriculum, all the technology resources and software, anything that related to curriculum, instruction, and assessment. They made a huge chart and identified everything we were spending money on in those areas. And that's happened is what we found is that if you're all first grade teachers, you might have a certain piece of software, you might have something different. You might have an instructional material that nobody else has it. That's not good practice, budgeting or equity wise. So we made some decisions K through 12 about what is that tier 1 instructional model look like for all kids in each content area. And that's what we're going to spend our money on, and everything else is going away. What is solid curriculum practices and technology software for these content areas? So that is going to help massively with streamlining our budget and providing equity for all. Planning. Another thing we identified last year that the council and I talked about is none of our departments or our school district had 5 to 10 year plans. So different department heads are putting together, like for example, in our technology department, we have so much equipment, Chromebooks for this grade level, iPads for this grade level. But there's never been a planful foresight on, in the FY '26 budget, we need to refurbish the iPads. In the FY '27 budget, we're gonna do this. So that we have a set schedule of updating and maintaining the equipment that we have. And then there's no surprises budget-wise if we have a plan. So departments have been working on that. One of the goals for our FY '25 budget is to offer public pre-K in the fall. That is a plan. It is in the budget, and we're looking at ways to implement that in our K-8 school. That's in partnership with our other community partners, so that it's to expand offerings for families.
For all residents.
We will not be able to offer universal public pre-K. We just don't have the space. But when we looked at other communities in Maine, really the best model is when the school offers some public pre-K and you allow for the Y, DCP, private daycares to continue to providing so families have voice and choice. Communities really like having the options to have choice. So we'll be in partnership. We certainly won't be able to educate all 4-year-olds, but we can at least, our goal is to take on 30 to 32 in the budget. Valuing our people. So done a lot of studying, looking at county pay and statewide pay. And we have some populations of employees that have not been valued over time in terms of keeping their pay up with what is competitive. So really trying to look at how to not dramatically increase the budget, but retaining people right now is going to be really important for our school department moving forward. We are at a crisis point in education, state and nationally. High school students are not entering education programs at the college level. Numbers are dwindling and people aren't seeing the value in becoming a teacher or working in the school department anymore like they once were for a variety of reasons. So it's going to be really important that when you have good people, you retain them and you grow from within. So that's something that we're trying to accomplish in this budget that's fiscally responsible. And then finally, looking at the whole student. When I say the social, emotional, and behavioral challenges we're facing are massive, that's an understatement. They are massive. Shortage of staffing is not helping. We have had 2 special education positions remain unfilled all year, one of which has been our 5A behavior teacher. That causes significant stress on staffing at the school. And the behaviors we're seeing in students is unlike anything we've ever seen before. And it's gotten worse, not better. And that, again, is not an Ellsworth problem. That is a state and national problem. So we are trying to find ways to service students in the social, emotional, and behavioral realm so that it doesn't impact other students. But that's becoming a huge, huge barrier for school departments statewide. Challenges and threats to our budget moving forward. If you aren't aware, there is a new paid family and medical leave law that requires school departments to raise 1% of their payroll taxes. So right out of the gate, we've had to add 1% of payroll to our budget to help cover this new law. It's an unfunded mandate by legislation. Those are the gifts that keep on giving. So I wanted to make you aware of that. We talked about this last year because in years prior to last, we applied so much of our fund balance to the budget that has caused strain. Last year, we were lucky. We did apply some fund balance, but we also created some reserve accounts. So we're going to be looking at trying to do that again this year in a fiscally responsible way. Our facilities are a continuous problem. We have to figure out how we're going to fix our buildings and come up with long-term planning. That includes the track at Duluth Stadium. We requested to be on the county agenda and we were denied that request. We had hoped to apply for ARPA funds to help us with that project. And we won't even be put on the agenda. So that is a struggle moving forward. We're gonna have to do some long-term planning about our facilities. Because if we continue to kick the can down the road, things are getting more expensive and our high school is at that point where it really needs some significant work. As I already talked about, increasingly complex student issues, behavioral, social, and emotional, and the decreased workforce. And the fact that it used to be when you had a grade 3 opening, you'd have 20 to 30 applicants. Now you're lucky if you get 5. So really trying to maximize and retain and recruit quality people. So in terms of our timeline, over February vacation in the week of February 26th, we're going to be looking to really finalize our first draft. We still are not done with negotiations. So that is causing a little bit of stress on the budget process. We are planning to, our goal is to finalize our budget and have it go to the school board on March 12th. Because according to the timeline that we received, council has to approve our budget in late March or April in order for it to meet the June deadline. So in talking to Tammy, I'd like to come to you again in a couple of weeks and present the budget where it's at that time so that you can look at it, ask questions, and then it still gives us a couple of weeks to make any changes or amendments. Our goal, of course, with this budget is we understand the commitment that the citizens made to us last year, and it was greatly appreciated. And in turn, we're working to really have a really fiscally responsible budget this year that doesn't impact taxpayers to that level again. This coming year, we know that that won't fly. So we're working really hard with grants and in our budget work to really evaluate staffing, programming, and services that we offer in our school, find efficiencies, and try to change the way we do things. We cannot educate students the way we used to anymore. Students are vastly different. They are more complicated, and we need to move forward with the times a little bit and change the way we do things. And so that's going to lead to changes in staffing and probably some changes in programmatic offerings moving forward long term. So that's everything right now. And I'll take questions.
Phew.
Oh, you bring coffee.
Great, and I think I'm gonna try to encourage us to council to try to be here the next time. that you come.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to ask those questions before we go.
Yes, yes.
And I'm gonna provide this backup information to the rest of
Do
the.
you want me to electronically send it to
That
you?
would be wonderful.
And then you can send it out to everybody.
Yeah.
And they can look at it. And like I said, we have some things coming up over the next few months that I think will be critical to have council attend so that some of you hear things from the ground up as it happens, especially in strategic planning. So that you guys have a voice and choice from your perspective as council members, as well as citizens in Ellsworth, of how the school department moves forward. Because that, to me, once we have that work done, that's going to help us long-term with budgeting decisions and everything that we do moving forward. So yeah, it's been a lot of work. We have a lot of work that we're continuing to do, but I feel like we've gotten a lot accomplished since July 1. And we'll continue to work to accomplish more, but I feel like we're getting there.
Thank you. It's clear. Into this. Very well organized. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No questions, Mr. O'Halloran? Come on.
Wait till you get to the numbers.
I know. I said Steve's gonna be disappointed that I don't have an item this color today.
This is eating dessert before the meal gets here.
No, this, to back up, Pat said, this is fabulous. Fabulous information to understand the numbers.
Well, and then that way, when we come talk about the down and dirty budget, I think it's important that people understand the context so that when I tell you, this is why this line is way down, but this line is up a little bit, you can understand the process behind it and why it is structured the way it's structured. Okay.
Anybody from the public? No? Well, thank you very much, Amy.
You're welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll see you in a few weeks.
I was gonna say, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Is that the plan to 2 weeks from today?
Is that right, Amy? 2 weeks from
Yes.
today? Yeah.
I mean, I can come next Friday, but I'd rather not.
No, well, are you not gonna be here?
No, I will. I just thought when we get the electronic information, send it out, update the council, it'd be great for other members to be here.
Yeah. That's it. I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Ann, you're up.
All right. So this week was the biggest thing that happened was the integration of the new software for most of the city. Cash receiving is still done through Trio, but we're integrated together and it's so much simpler and so much, we've done a lot of work to get here. To take a chart of accounts that was insane and make it meaningful and useful to everybody that needs to use it. As you know, at City Council, I gave you guys a proposed budget schedule for budget workshops. You're gonna have your books. My goal is to have them at the end of next week, but it might be the beginning of the following week, but definitely.
Was that last week of February?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm trying to get them next week. Just depends on if I get all my other stuff done. So, and as you know, I hired a deputy finance director. He's gonna start March 11th. Really strong operations and accounting background, which is what I feel that we need for the city. And one of the other things that I did this week is I met with Bar Harbor Wealth Management. We manage our reserves. And one of the things I did earlier in the fiscal year was to put together a new investment policy. If you know my background, I have a big background in investment. So I really think it's important that we put our reserves to work. In the last 8 years, we've made not even 2% on our reserve because of the restrictions of the investment policy that is really, it was sort of crafted by the state for towns. But when I kind of dug into that, it looked like it was crafted for towns that try to manage their own money. And in this time, you don't manage your own money. So I had a good meeting with them. We have some plans. It's still going to be conservative, but a little bit more diverse and robust with respect to what, I mean, we're not investing in hedge funds or anything like that, but I think there's definitely room for improvement. I think we're going to need to have that money working for us instead of just raising taxes all the time. The other thing that has been going on for a little while, as you know, is my 5-year plan. It's a little bit more than 5 years, but for the most part, it's the capital improvement plan for the city. This is going to be a digital plan. It's going to be on the budget page for everyone to look at. It's going to have the project, scope of work, any work that's been done, how much money's been spent, what's going to fund the project throughout the life of the project, and photographs. So people have a better idea of what it means when we say we're gonna rehab or we're gonna rebuild High Street Pump Station. Nobody knows that. And also the expansion of the water utility with the work being done on the high pressure zone. So some people know what that means, but I'd like it to kind of level the playing field so that everybody knows what we're talking about. Everybody sees the value and there's some engagement and everybody understands where the money comes from. There's all kinds of different funding. On the budget side of that, I'm putting together a spreadsheet that shows you where debt service is dropping off over the next couple of years on old issues and where what would be added into that. So you know about the CWSRF money for storm drain upgrades. That's the 8.6 at 1%. So it'll be illustrative of that. Okay, so this debt service falls off, this debt service comes on. Does that look like? What's the net effect on the budget? So that's something that I'm going to include in the budget packet. The other super fun thing that happened this week was our general checking account got a lot of fraudulent activity going through it. So we were able to catch it before anything went through, but it's pretty significant and very sophisticated. So what I did going forward with the general account, it really would be such a difficulty to change that account because so many things go into it. All of our federal funding, all of our state funding, everything, credit cards, everything comes into that account. So I implemented positive pay. It's free to us. So every time, the only time we write checks is on a warrant. We're not writing anything outside the warrant. So as soon as we complete the warrant, we upload the check register to the bank, to our general checking account, so that nothing goes through there that isn't on that register. That includes direct disbursements, any kind of portal payments, or, we pay taxes, certain taxes through portals. We pay some of the benefits for employees through those portals. So all of that is accounted for so that we don't have to worry about someone. I mean, it's wow. I've never seen anything like it. They literally cut out the inside of the check and put a new check face on. And the way that it was caught is that a lot of the checks had already cleared the bank. So they were coming in a second time and they were letting me out to some guy in Louisiana, or I caught some in our filter, like I was telling you, of credit card payments. People trying to schedule credit card payments through our general account, which is actually restricted for those kind of payments, so that didn't go through. So I feel like we're pretty much on top of this. We have it automatically set up with the new software to generate that report that goes to the bank so that we don't have this problem.
It's great. Positive pay is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's a huge help. I mean, I have to go through every morning and check through
Do the
it.
exceptions.
Yeah, do the exceptions, but that's fine with me. We still have a little bit of training that we need in finance for the new software, so we're gonna be working on that over the next week or so. And then possibly have the vendor come back. Other than that, just working on kind of revamping the chart of accounts for budget, and then making something meaningful to compare it to, looking backwards. So that you know what the changes are. It's gonna be a little bit different in the way that revenues arranged, things like that. Streamlining the accounts that we use for expenses. I think making the names of accounts more illustrative to what they're actually for. So everything's very straightforward, very transparent. And it should, I honestly believe it will make the budget process go a lot faster and a lot more efficient. That's it.
Just that's it.
That's all I got.
No, that's great.
Anybody from the public?
I'm curious, so Failsworth experienced that type of fraud attempt on our checking account. I'm sure other towns and cities in Maine have also.
Every bank account. They attack banks usually.
And how,
So the big one that a lot of fraud is coming from is Chase. Of course, it's a huge international bank. And also Green something bank out of Walmart. Walmart has a bank, I guess. So there's a lot of fraud. But luckily, we have a pretty savvy banker in banking, and we communicate with them regularly about everything. So
Who's our?
First National, Bar Harbor manages our reserves. So, yeah, Kyle was on it right away. So I'm pretty sure that we have caught everything that might have come through. I guess the trend is that they try for a while, and then if it doesn't work, they move on to somebody else. So hopefully they will move on and go away soon. Anything else?
All right.
Thanks so much.